First off, I want to thank you all for the amazing support you've shown to the podcast. If you find it difficult to gain and finish hours long, 8 to 10 podcasts per week, please subscribe to most advanced, featured, and accurate quick podcasts, summaries on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can start with free trial, which lets you listen all the podcasts, and later, just for the price of candy in most places. It will save you from spending 15 to 20 hours per week catching up. Here is a rundown on how microplastics are ruining your health, featuring Dr. Rhonda Patrick by Chris Williamson. Dr. Rhonda Patrick has been delving into the world of ultra-processed foods, plastics, microplastics, and their associated chemicals, and how they're impacting human health. Microplastics, in particular, have caught her attention. She explains that microplastics are tiny plastic particles that break down from larger plastic containers, food packaging, and other sources. These particles can range in size from 5 micrometers to 100 nanometers, making them invisible to the naked eye. Microplastics can be found in food, beverages, and even water, and they're being consumed by humans every day. The prevalence of microplastics is staggering, and it's almost impossible to avoid them. They're not just in food and water, but also in the air, soil, and even sludge. The main sources of microplastic exposure are oral ingestion and inhalation. Microplastics can be absorbed by the body, and studies have shown that animals can absorb up to 2.5% of the particles they consume. However, the absorption rate in humans is still unknown. The size of microplastics plays a significant role in their absorption. Smaller particles, like nanoplastics, can be more readily absorbed through the intestinal cells. Heat can also break down microplastics into smaller particles, making them more easily absorbed. For example, microwaving food in plastic containers or drinking hot beverages from plastic cups can accelerate the breakdown of microplastics. Dietary fiber can help inhibit the absorption of microplastics. Fermentable fiber found in fruits and vegetables can encapsulate microplastics and prevent them from being absorbed. Non-fermentable fiber, on the other hand, can help move microplastics through the intestines and excrete them more rapidly. Microplastics have been found to accumulate in various organs, including the brain, heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, and reproductive organs. The brain, in particular, seems to be a hotspot for microplastic accumulation, with studies showing that microplastics can accumulate 10 to 20 times more in the brain than in other organs. This is concerning, as studies have also shown that microplastics in the brain can cause inflammation, which is linked to brain aging, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. One study found that individuals with dementia and Alzheimer's disease had 10 times more microplastics in their brains than those without the disease. While the study didn't prove causation, it highlights the potential risks associated with microplastic exposure. Dr. Rhonda Patrick suggests that a study comparing people who breathe cleaner air but eat the same diet with those who breathe polluted air but eat the same diet could help tease out the effects of microplastic exposure through inhalation versus ingestion. In terms of the types of plastics, Dr. Rhonda Patrick mentions BPA, which is a chemical commonly found in plastic. She also mentions other types of plastics, but the conversation is cut off before she can elaborate. BPA is often referred to as a xenostrogen because it can mimic estrogen in the body and bind to estrogen receptors. This can have a range of effects on hormones, including disrupting testosterone levels. Studies have shown that high levels of BPA exposure are associated with lower testosterone levels in men. But BPA isn't the only culprit. They're commonly found in personal hygiene products and cosmetics, and have been shown to affect the development of male fetuses. In fact, one study found that exposure to phthalates during pregnancy was associated with shorter angenital distance in male infants, which can be a sign of reproductive problems. And it's not just BPA and phthalates. Other plastic chemicals, like BPS and PFAS, are also causing concern. BPS is a replacement for BPA, but it's been shown to have similar effects on the body. PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are known as forever chemicals because they persist in the environment and can accumulate in the body. So, what's the impact of all these plastic chemicals on our health? Well, it's not just limited to reproductive issues. Studies have also shown that exposure to BPA is associated with decreased cognition, memory, and learning in adults. And it's not just men who are affected. Women are also susceptible to the effects of plastic chemicals, particularly when it comes to fertility. One study found that women with high levels of BPA had 50% fewer viable eggs. But what about the sex differences in susceptibility to plastic chemicals? It seems that males are more vulnerable, particularly during development. Boys are twice as likely to be diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and are more susceptible to the effects of phthalates on reproductive development. So, where are we getting exposed to these plastic chemicals? Well, one of the most common sources is drinking bottled water from plastic bottles. Tap water can also contain microplastics, and our oceans are contaminated with microplastics that can accumulate in fish and shellfish. Heat is also a major factor, particularly when combined with plastic. For example, drinking hot coffee from a plastic cup can increase the leaching of BPA by 55 times. And it's not just coffee cups. Tea bags are also a source of microplastic exposure. A recent study found that tea bags can release millions to billions of microplastic particles per milliliter when hot water is added. That's a huge dose of microplastics. And it's not just limited to tea. Many other food and drink products can also contain microplastics. While green tea has shown to have huge benefits for cognition and may even offset the microplastics consumed, it's essential to remember that other sources of microplastics, such as salt and air, are also present. Another significant source is drier ventilation in the house, which can release microplastics into the air. Black plastic, often made from recycled electronics, is also a major source of carcinogens, including brominated flame retardants. These chemicals are not supposed to be in food and can be found in high levels in black utensils, toys, and containers. The conversation shifts to dermal exposure, where Dr. Rhonda Patrick emphasizes the importance of avoiding phthalates in personal hygiene products. She notes that even if the ingredient list doesn't explicitly mention phthalates, words like fragrance and parfum can indicate their presence. Receipts are also a significant source of BPA, which can be absorbed through the skin. The discussion also touches on clothing and the potential for dermal absorption of chemicals like BPA. While it's not the primary source of exposure, sweating, heat, and friction can increase absorption. Dr. Rhonda Patrick suggests choosing natural fibers like cotton or bamboo for clothing and bedding to minimize exposure. The conversation then moves to food packaging, where Dr. Rhonda Patrick acknowledges that it's often unavoidable to have plastic wrapping on meats and vegetables. However, she notes that the more the plastic breaks down over time, the more chemicals can leach into the food. She advises against storing vegetables in plastic bags and instead uses a paper towel to line the container. When it comes to blueberries, she rinses them off and hopes for the best, acknowledging that they haven't been in the plastic container for years.
Chris Williamson points out that blueberries wouldn't survive for long in a plastic container, and Dr. Rhonda Patrick agrees. She emphasizes the importance of having some peace of mind and realizing that we live in a plastic world, but it's essential to minimize exposure to microplastics. She's in the process of getting an in-home filtration system that uses stainless steel storage containers instead of plastic jugs. Chris Williamson mentions that Ben Greenfield's father makes an advanced in-home water filtration system, but Dr. Rhonda Patrick isn't using that one.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick notes that reverse osmosis filtration can remove not only microplastics, but also nanoplastics, chemicals, and minerals. However, this means that the water may be demineralized, so it's essential to consider remineralization protocols. She suggests using a system that remineralizes the water or adding mineral drops to the water.
Chris Williamson asks about her favorite remineralization protocol, and Dr. Rhonda Patrick mentions that some systems can remineralize the water after filtration. Chris Williamson wonders if most people will opt for a tabletop solution rather than replumbing their entire house.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick agrees and suggests using mineral drops or a mineral supplement like Pure Encapsulation's Mineral 50A.
Chris Williamson mentions that he was a partner with AquaTrue and suggests that listeners try using the code in WTIFE for a discount.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick emphasizes the importance of avoiding heating plastic, such as using plastic containers for takeout or reheating meals in plastic containers.
Chris Williamson shares a story about his candle obsession and how it affected the air quality in his home.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick notes that air filters, like HEPA filters, can help remove microplastics from the air, and vacuuming can also disturb and bring microplastics into the air.
Chris Williamson asks Dr. Rhonda Patrick to share her top tactics for avoiding plastics in consumption. She also suggests using a Yeti mug for coffee and asking baristas to pour the coffee into the mug instead of a plastic cup. Chris Williamson shares an idea for reducing plastic exposure when ordering iced coffee. and suggests asking the barista to pour the coffee into a steel container instead of a plastic cup.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick agrees that this is a good idea and notes that ice drinks are generally better than hot drinks when it comes to plastic exposure. Dr. Rhonda Patrick mentions that canned soup is a significant source of BPA exposure, as the soup is hot when it's filled into the can. She suggests avoiding canned soup and instead opting for soup made in glass.
Chris Williamson asks about the inside of Tetra Paks, and Dr. Rhonda Patrick mentions that some companies use polylactic acid, an organic compound, to line their cans and to-go coffee mugs. She also suggests avoiding microwave popcorn due to the forever chemicals in the bags. Chris Williamson asks about supplement capsules, and Dr. Rhonda Patrick notes that they are typically made of gelatin, not plastic. Dr. Rhonda Patrick emphasizes the importance of minimizing exposure to microplastics and suggests that making a few changes to daily habits can make a significant difference. Chris Williamson mentions that he's identified supplements as one area where he can breathe a sigh of relief, as they are typically made of gelatin rather than plastic. These filters can help remove particulate matter, including microplastics, from the air. She notes that while there are no validated tests for measuring microplastics in the body, there are tests available for chemicals associated with microplastics, such as BPA and phthalates.
When it comes to getting rid of microplastics in the body, Dr. Patrick emphasizes the importance of dietary fiber. She explains that fiber helps move microplastics out of the body through feces, and that a high daily fiber intake can increase the chances of excreting microplastics. She also mentions that certain types of fiber, such as pectins and inulin, can create a gel-like substance in the gut that encapsulates microplastics, preventing them from being absorbed. In addition to fiber, Dr. Patrick discusses the role of sauna in excreting toxins, including heavy metals, through sweat. However, she notes that sauna is not as effective for excreting microplastics, which are primarily excreted through urine. She suggests that sulforaphane, a compound found in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, can help activate an enzyme that makes microplastics water-soluble, allowing them to be excreted more easily. Dr. Patrick also addresses the issue of wildfires and air pollution, suggesting that people who have been impacted by these events should consider using a HEPA filter and taking sulforaphane to help increase the excretion of harmful compounds. She notes that while sulforaphane can help with chemical aspects of air pollution, it is not effective against microplastics, which require a HEPA filter to remove from the air. Dr. Rhonda Patrick added that this is not an isolated issue, as forever chemicals are present in our water sources due to wastewater plants not treating for them. These chemicals then concentrate in sludge used on non-organic farms, which can contaminate nearby organic farms. A Consumer Report study found that many dairy products, including organic ones, contained high levels of pHs, which cows excrete through their milk. However, she also emphasizes the importance of not becoming overly stressed about it, as chronic stress is bad for health. The conversation also touched on the topic of ultra-processed foods, which are defined as foods with multiple steps of processing, often for convenience, taste, and shelf life. These foods can contain a large number of calories, added sugar, and chemicals that may be harmful to health. Dr. Rhonda Patrick mentioned that there are over 10,000 chemicals in the U.S. food system, and many of them are not thoroughly tested for safety. The discussion also delved into the topic of food colorings, which can be carcinogenic and affect brain function. Dr. Rhonda Patrick cited the example of red number 3, which was recently banned by the FDA due to its carcinogenic properties. She also mentioned that many food colorings are known to cause hyperactivity and impulse control issues in children.
Chris Williamson shared a personal anecdote about how he had to redesign the packaging of his product, Newtonic, to avoid using red 40, a coloring linked to ADHD in children. The conversation also touched on the topic of trans fats, which were once considered a healthier alternative to saturated fats, but are now known to be harmful to health.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick explained that trans fats can alter the structure of cell membranes, leading to negative health effects. They shifted discussing the negative effects of trans fats on the body. Trans fats stiffen the cells, making it difficult for them to function properly. This can lead to cardiovascular disease and hypertension. The FDA finally banned trans fats from the food supply in 2018, but not before they had been present in foods for over 100 years. The conversation then shifted to nitrites, which are found in processed meats like bacon and hot dogs. Nitrites can be converted into carcinogens in the gut, making them a health risk. However, not all bacon contains nitrites. Some labels claim to be uncured, but this doesn't necessarily mean they are nitrite-free. The key is to look for bacon that is cured with nitrates, which are found in plants and can be converted into nitric oxide with the help of vitamin C. Discussion then turned to the topic of added sugar in ultra-processed foods. Dr. Rhonda Patrick explained that added sugar disrupts hormones, leading to overeating and weight gain. She cited a study that showed people who ate ultra-processed foods consumed 500 more calories per meal than those who ate whole foods. This led to a weight gain of 2 pounds over 2 weeks.
Chris Williamson asked how much good research has been done on the topic of ultra-processed foods.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick replied that while there is still much to be learned, the evidence suggests that added sugar is a major contributor to weight gain and other health problems. She also mentioned the protein leverage hypothesis, which suggests that people will overeat if they are not getting enough protein in their diet. The conversation then turned to the topic of testosterone and how added sugar can affect hormone production. Dr. Rhonda Patrick cited a study that showed a 25% decrease in testosterone levels in men who consumed 75 grams of added sugar. She noted that this is a significant decrease, especially for men who are already struggling with low testosterone levels. The discussion turned to the topic of food economics and how it can be difficult for people to afford healthy food. Dr. Rhonda Patrick noted that a whole foods diet can be expensive, with a study showing that it costs $45 more per week than an ultra-processed food diet. She also mentioned the SNAP program, which can make it difficult for people to afford healthy food. Animal studies have shown that rats will keep going back for sugar, indicating an addictive quality. In humans, eating added sugar activates dopamine reward pathways in the brain, and people who are obese have a lower density of dopamine 2 receptors, which can lead to tolerance. The constant activation of the dopamine reward pathway can lead to a decrease in the number of receptors, making it harder to feel the effects of dopamine. The link between ultra-processed foods, sugar, and cancer is complex, but there is evidence that eating ultra-processed foods, which are high in added sugar, can increase the risk of cancer. Obesity is a major risk factor for cancer, and eating ultra-processed foods can contribute to obesity. The way sugar is metabolized in the body can also cause inflammation, which is a major driver of aging and cancer. Studies have shown that men who consume high amounts of sugar-sweetened beverages have increased inflammatory markers, which can lead to cancer. Eating ultra-processed foods and added sugar can also affect brain health and energy levels. High blood glucose levels can cause atrophy in the hippocampus and amygdala, leading to problems with learning and memory, as well as emotional regulation. The Maillard reaction, which occurs when glucose reacts with lipids and proteins in the body, can cause damage to collagen and lead to stiffening of the heart and blood vessels. Inflammation caused by ultra-processed foods and added sugar can also affect mood and cognition, leading to symptoms of depression. To rebuild the gut and make it less leaky, people can focus on eating whole foods, such as fruits, vegetables, lean meats, and whole grains. Avoiding ultra-processed foods, which are high in saturated fat and refined sugar, can also help. Fiber plays an important role in preventing intestinal permeability, and eating foods high in fermentable fiber, such as berries, apples, and onions, can help increase butyrate production and keep the gut healthy. Reducing stress, which can cause intestinal permeability, is also important. However, for those who inevitably consume ultra-processed foods, exercise can be a mitigating factor. Exercise, particularly high-intensity interval training, can improve cognition, increase butyrate-producing bacteria, and boost brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Dr. Patrick noted that exercise is the forgiver of most of our sins, and that it can help offset the negative effects of ultra-processed foods. When it comes to exercise, Dr. Patrick emphasized the importance of high-intensity interval training, particularly for its time efficiency and ability to improve cardiorespiratory fitness. However, she also noted that other protocols, such as Tabata or 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, can also be effective.
Chris Williamson shared his personal experience with the Norwegian 4x4 protocol, using an assault bike, and found it to be an effective way to improve cardiorespiratory fitness.
Dr. Patrick agreed, noting that the bike is a good option because it allows for easy transitions between high-intensity and low-intensity exercise. In terms of research, Dr. Patrick is currently exploring the effects of creatine on the brain and muscle, particularly its impact on the methylation pathway. She is also interested in the relationship between exercise and cancer, both in terms of prevention and treatment. She noted that exercise can be an effective adjunct treatment for cancer, improving survival rates and reducing side effects of chemotherapy. Dr. Patrick also discussed her own exercise routine, which includes a 10-minute Tabata workout, and noted that she prefers a 20-second on. She emphasized the importance of finding an exercise routine that is enjoyable and sustainable, as consistency is key to reaping the benefits of exercise. Dr. Patrick emphasized the need to find an exercise routine that is enjoyable and sustainable, and to prioritize high-intensity interval training for its time efficiency and effectiveness. In one study, dancing with music was actually ranked as the top-rated category of exercise movement. This is likely due to the social, intimate, and collaborative aspects of dancing, which can stimulate the release of oxytocin, serotonin, and vasopressin. Dr. Rhonda Patrick has a wealth of knowledge on the topic of exercise and health, and she shares some of her insights on her podcast, Found My Fitness, which is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. She also has a website, foundmyfitness.com, where she offers free reports, including one on how to train according to the experts, which can be found at howtotrainguide.com. This report includes protocols for improving VO2 max muscle mass, muscle strength, and body composition, as well as explanations of the science behind the training methods. She also has a report on BDNF protocols, which can be found at bdnfprotocols.com, and includes exercise protocols and polyphenol protocols that have been shown to improve brain health and cognition. Additionally, she has a report on how to choose an omega-3 supplement, which can be found at omega3guy.com, and includes a list of high-quality supplements that are low in oxidation. Dr. Rhonda Patrick's reports are available for download, and she encourages people to check them out to learn more about exercise and health.
She thanks Chris for having her on the show, and Chris thanks her for sharing her knowledge with his audience. Chris then teases his next guest, Andrew Huberman, and invites listeners to tune in to their conversation, which promises to be just as informative and brain-expanding. Thank you for tuning in. Please click follow button, and just remember, subscription is only £1 or $1 per month. Leave a comment or review. Until next time, happy listening.